You're listening to the Mental Game Gym podcast, the place where athletes, parents, and coaches build the mental skills that lead to consistent, confident performance. We explore presence, resilience, values, and everything that fuels a stronger mind. Here's your host, mental performance coach Andrew Crome. Let's get started.
Hello and welcome back to the Mental Game Gym podcast. I am your host and mental performance coach Andrew Crome, and this is the podcast where we train your mind like you train your body. And if you're an athlete who's serious about your performance, but you feel like your mental game is the thing that's holding you back, then you're in the right place. Today, we're talking about something so simple, but so powerful. What do you do when things don't go your way? Because here's the truth, stuff will go sideways. You'll make mistakes. You'll get benched. Someone will outplay you. A coach won't give you a role that you think that you deserve. And sometimes you feel off for no clear reason. And we can't stop all those things from happening. But what you can do is learn to respond in a better way. And that's exactly what we're going to dive into today. And we're going to use two mental performance tools that I like to use with the athletes that I work with. And they are the choice point and the formula of E plus R equals O, which stands for event plus response equals outcome. So what we're going to do is I'm going to explain both of these frameworks, share some real athlete stories, and also going to bust a common mental game myth. And finally, give you a simple tool to apply this throughout your practices, throughout your games, performances, and your day-to-day life. Because all the things that you learn here can be applied to any aspect of your life, not just your sport. So whether you're listening before practice, while doing recovery work, or just in the car, keep your ears open. This might be the mindset shift that you didn't know that you needed. So let's get into the episode, and let's start with the choice point, which comes from Russ Harris. And if you've read The Confidence Gap, and I've talked about the confidence gap on the podcast before, or if you're into acceptance and commitment therapy, then you'll know Russ Harris's work because he's one of the leaders in that field. If you know Russ's work, then you might have come across the choice point before. But if you haven't, here's what you need to know. Every single day, and especially in high stress moments during competition or during practice or during your day-to-day life, there's going to be high stressful moments. When you're in those moments, you hit choice points. And these are micro moments where you get to choose how you respond. And every choice you make in those moments either moves you towards the athlete and the person that you want to be, so acting in line with your values. So it could be confident, focused, team first, gritty, or it moves you away from the person and the athlete that you want to be into self-doubt, avoidance, frustration, comparison, and actions such as slamming your stick or shouting and swearing. So think of it like this. You're on a path and you get to this choice point. Something happens and now you have a decision to make. And you can go left or right. Left takes you away from your values, away from the person that you want to be, away from achieving those goals that you want to achieve. Whereas if you go right, it takes you towards your values, towards the actions that will help you get to where you want to go and achieve your goals. Now, this isn't about being perfect. It's not about always being positive or pretending nothing that bothers you. It's about recognizing, right now I have a choice. This thing has happened, and I can now respond in a way that gets me closer to the player and the person that I want to be, or further away. So let me give you an example. Let's say you're playing in a hockey game and you miss an open net in a tight game, and you feel that your stomach drops and your brain starts going, oh, you blew it. Everyone saw that. Coach is pissed. You choked. That's a choice point. Do you let that voice in your head spiral and start playing smaller to avoid messing up again? Or do you take a breath, notice the thought that you're having, and choose to get back on the ice and compete and play your game? That moment right there is really where everything happens. That's where the mental game lives. It's those moments. It's not the scoreboard, not the stat sheet. It's the space between what just happened and what you do next. That's the choice point. And that brings us right into E plus R equals O. So here's another thing that I love talking about with athletes, and athletes really get it once you start explaining it to them. I've seen it used everywhere from elite sports teams to personal development circles, businesses, and it's called E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. And it's simple. It seems very basic, but when you actually apply it, it's a mindset shift that gives you back control. So let's break it down. So the event is what happens. This could be anything. This could be something that's positive. This could be something that's negative. It could be a ref makes a bad call. And that's one thing that I see a lot of when I speak to athletes. One of the things that is on their mind a lot of the time is refs calls, or you make a mistake. Somebody is chirping you. But it doesn't have to necessarily be a negative event. It could also be a positive one. You do something good. You make a play. You score a goal. You get a big hit. You get a personal best. You still have to choose what your response is. So that's the event. Then the response. That's how you choose to respond in that situation as soon as that has happened. And that's physically, mentally, emotionally. And the outcome is what happens as a result of your response. So a lot of people will think that thing has just happened. Like, I made a mistake. And then the outcome is I start playing within myself. I try and go out there and try not to make more mistakes. But in reality, it's your response plus the event that creates the outcome. So let me give you two scenarios here to show what I mean. So the first scenario is you get benched. You start sulking on the bench. You're mumbling under your breath. You're maybe throwing things around a little bit. And you replay that mistake over and over in your head. So the response there was obviously not very helpful. You emotionally shut down. You get frustrated. And then the outcome is you're not prepared. You're not focused. You're not where you need to be when you go back out to play. And therefore, you're too busy thinking about what's just happened. So you're not focused on what you can do right now. You're not fully in the game. You're playing tight. Maybe your coach notices your body language and realizes that you're not in the game and you're not giving your best. So maybe he takes you out again. So then let's look at scenario B. The same event. You get benched. You've made a mistake and your coach has put you on the bench. You take one deep breath and you say, okay, next shift. You stay locked into the game. You cheer your teammates on. That response is composed. It's focused. It's professional. You're letting things go. You're refocusing on what you can do right now. You're cheering on your teammates. You're being in the present moment. And then the outcome of that is you're ready when you're called. Because you're focused, you bounce back stronger. And that builds trust with yourself. And your coaches see that too. The coaches see he's made a mistake, but it's not affecting him. So the same event, and we get two completely different responses, which means we get two completely different outcomes. And that's the power of E plus R equals O. You don't control every event, every situation that happens, but you have full control over how you respond. Typically, your brain is going to want you to go to that place when that situation happens where you're going to be emotional and irrational. So training this and really figuring out when that situation happens, you take a second and you choose how you respond. And if you keep choosing responses that align with your values of the person and the player that you want to be, then the outcomes start to shift in your favor. So zoom in on this a little bit more with some real athlete stories. So the first story is about Jack, and he is a 16-year-old hockey player that I've worked with. Very skilled, super competitive, but he's constantly comparing himself to a teammate. So every practice, every game, he was keeping score in his head. In one game, that teammate scores a couple of goals. Jack then starts to press. He tries to force plays because he's trying to keep up with this teammate. And you can see it. He's skating angry. He's not in control. He makes mistakes and then gets benched. So here's a classic choice point. We'd already done work on this. So Jack knew what was happening. So he recognized, I'm not playing my game. I'm chasing this. I'm forcing this. So he starts to use his reset routine. He realizes that he is moving away from the player, the person that he wants to be. He resets. He takes a deep breath, taps his shin pad with his stick, and focuses on his personal values. This is how I want to play. Grit, compete, and joy. Playing with a smile on his face. And that completely changed his energy. He started playing that way, playing physical, making the right decisions. And then the coach saw that too, started to trust him to close out the third period. And that's what it looks like to shift your response, even when your emotions are trying to pull you in the opposite direction. So the second story is about Maya, a basketball player coming back from an ACL tear. Physically, she's cleared, ready to go, but she's hesitant. Mentally, she's not really there, especially when she has to cut hard or going for rebounds. And she told me in one session, it's like I'm scared to go all in, to give 100%, because I don't want to mess up again. I don't want to get hurt again. So we worked through a choice point map. Away moves were hesitation, overpassing, staying out on the perimeter, not really getting involved as much as she should be, playing things safe. Whereas towards moves were making aggressive cuts, trusting her knee, and attacking the glass. So in this case, her event was internal. It was fear. It was doubt. It was a fear of getting hurt again. But her response was the only thing that she could control. So here, she recognized, I'm feeling fear. I'm feeling doubt. I'm going to release it, taking a big deep breath and shaking out my wrists. And then refocusing back on those things that we just talked about, those towards moves, right? Attacking the glass, being aggressive, trusting my body. Now, it wasn't perfect, but she started stacking up reps where she leaned into that discomfort, and then that changed everything, because the more she did that, the more she started to trust her body. The more she put herself into that uncomfortable situation, her brain started realizing, well, you can do this, right? And she started stacking those things up, and then the fear and the doubt didn't completely go away, but it definitely reduced. So she could play her own game. So the important thing here is recognizing when you're at that choice point or when an event happens. That's what we need to recognize. So let's take a quick break from the stories and bust a common myth that I hear all the time. So here is your mental game Mythbusters myth of the week. I can't control the outcome, so why bother trying so hard if I can't control the outcome? And I get it. If you're doing everything right and still not getting the result, it's easy to think that, well, what's the point? Effort doesn't matter because it's all down to luck, for example. But here's the truth. Now, you can't control the outcome, but that doesn't mean that your response doesn't matter. In fact, it's everything. What if the outcome you're chasing takes more time or shows up in a different way than expected? If you stop showing up fully and giving 100% because you don't see the results straight away, then you're letting the event control your mindset. So let's go back to E plus R equals O. You don't control E, but you shape the O, the outcome, through your response. So athletes who win long-term are the ones who stay committed, even when the outcome isn't guaranteed. They keep playing hard because that's all that they can do. That's all they can focus on and control. They keep responding with grit. with determination, with resiliency, and they keep choosing towards moves. And that becomes their identity, not the scoreboard or other outcomes. So next time your brain says, why bother? You can respond with, because I don't need the outcome to act like the athlete that I want to be. Okay, so finally, let's look at how we can apply what we've been discussing into your daily lives, into your practice, and into your games. What I want you to do is I want you to look for your choice points this week, in and out of your sport, because they're everywhere. After a mistake, or when a coach doesn't look your way, or if somebody says something to you that you don't like, when you feel nervous before an event, before a game, before a practice, even in practice, when you're not feeling it. In those moments, I want you to pause and ask yourself, what's a towards move right now? What's a response that reflects the athlete, the person that I want to be? And you can come back to the 3 R's. So name the thought or emotion that's pulling you away. Frustration, or I can't do this, I'm not good enough, for example. And release, right? Take a deep breath, which gives you that time to respond how you want to, instead of reacting, and refocus. Refocus on one small action that moves you forward. And if you keep doing that and you keep stacking up these responses that take you towards where you want to go, you don't just play better, but you start to feel better. You start to trust yourself more because you know, I can handle it. No matter what happens, I get to choose my next move. That is where the mental game lives. Something that I think will really help you is if you sit down and take a few minutes to really think about, what athlete, what person do I want to be? How do I want to act? What are some actions that are going to take me towards achieving my goals? And write those down. Also think about some common situations, common events that show up, and write down how you want to respond when those things happen. Because the more you do this and the more that you prepare and you plan for situations and things that could come up, when they happen in real life, you will not just react, but you will respond how you want to, because you've gone through it in your mind, right? You can also visualize, if this situation happens, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a breath and I am going to focus on the next play. Maybe you want to say something to yourself, right? So what? Next play, right? Go again. Or think about your values. Maybe that's something that you repeat in that moment, right? If your values are resilient, controlled, and energy, then go back to those. How do you act resilient, controlled, and energy? Go and do those things. Go and choose something that's going to bring you closer to where you want to go. Okay, so let's wrap it up. So today we talked about the choice point. So how every tough moment is an opportunity to respond with your values, to take you towards where you want to go, towards the goals that you're trying to achieve. E plus R equals O, and how your response shapes your outcome. It's not just the event that dictates the outcome, but a huge factor in there is your response. And the great thing is you get to choose what that response is, but you have to recognize when you need to make that response. You have to recognize when you're in that situation where you need to step in and make that response, rather than just letting your brain do what it wants to. Because typically it's going to act in an unhelpful way. So step in and make the choice of how you want to respond to the situation. And this takes practice. You're not going to be able to do it every single time, and you're not going to be able to do it straight away. It's a skill that we have to develop and learn. So doing it throughout your daily life. Recognize when a situation happens and you start to feel a bit frustrated, right? You start to feel more tense. Maybe there's a certain sensation. Maybe you have butterflies in your stomach, or your chest gets tighter. Those are good signs that you're in a situation where you need to choose your response wisely. We also busted the myth that If I can't control the result, then why bother? And also how to actually apply this in your daily life. So if this episode hit home, I want you to do me a favor. I want you to share it with someone. Share it with a teammate, a coach, a parent. I'll also really appreciate it if you leave a review, write a comment, subscribe. You can also hit the link in the show notes to book your first session with me. So if you're ready to build your mental game, then you don't have to go it alone. Click that link and we can have a discussion about what it is that you want to improve on, how I can help you, and I can start giving you those tools, those skills to start using straight away. Right? You don't have to wait for things to fall apart before you get support, before you push your game to that next level. So until next time, keep showing up, keep choosing towards moves, and as always, talk more than you listen.